What if you discovered that the people you trusted most, your own family, planned to strip away your freedom on the very holiday you had sacrificed everything to make perfect? What would you do if you overheard them plotting to lock you away while they celebrated without you? This is the story of one woman's breaking point and the unforgettable way she chose to fight back. A story of betrayal served cold on Christmas morning when the servant finally became the master of her own destiny. My name is Elena Monroe, and at 34 years old, I've built what most people would call a successful life. From my corner office at Brightline Media in downtown Cleveland, I manage marketing campaigns that reach millions. My team respects me, my boss trusts my judgment, and my salary affords me a comfortable lifestyle in a modern apartment overlooking Lake Erie. Yet every time I visit my family, I somehow transform from a competent professional into an invisible servant. The morning commute to work is my sanctuary. While other people complain about Cleveland's unpredictable weather and rush hour traffic, I cherish these 45 minutes of solitude before diving into client meetings and strategy sessions. My colleagues often joke that I'm married to my job, but they don't understand that work is where I feel most valued. It's the one place where my contributions are acknowledged, measured, and compensated fairly. My mother, Caroline, has been a widow for 6 years now. Dad's death from a heart attack left her with a paid-off house in Shaker Heights and a decent pension, but also with an emptiness she's tried to fill by micromanaging her children's lives. She has this uncanny ability to make me feel simultaneously needed and inadequate. Elena, dear, when are you going to give me grandchildren? She'll ask, conveniently forgetting that both my siblings have already provided her with 5 grandchildren between them. My older sister Marissa lives just 10 minutes from Mom with her husband Jake and their 2 boys, 8-year-old Tyler and 6-year-old Mason. Both kids are whirlwinds of energy, the type who can destroy a room in under 5 minutes. Marissa works part-time as a dental hygienist and considers herself the family's martyred saint because she sacrifices her career for her children. She never misses an opportunity to remind me that I wouldn't understand the challenges of motherhood. Then there's Dylan, my younger brother, the golden child who could do no wrong. At 31, he's already on his 3rd promotion at the bank, has a picture-perfect wife named Rebecca, and 3 adorable daughters under 7. The family treats him like royalty, despite the fact that he only shows up for major holidays and always has an excuse to leave early. The family dynamics crystallized years ago into an unspoken but rigid hierarchy. At every family gathering, I become the default coordinator, cook, cleaner, and childcare provider. Elena doesn't have kids, so she has more energy. Marissa would say, Elena's single, so she doesn't need to rush home. Dylan would add, Elena's so good at organizing things, Mom would conclude, handing me a list of tasks that would make a wedding planner weep. Last Thanksgiving, I arrived at 7 in the morning to start cooking. By the time everyone else showed up around noon, I had already prepared most of the meal, set the table with Mom's china, and created individual craft stations to keep the kids entertained. While I was elbow-deep in turkey stuffing, Marissa complained about how exhausted she was from driving 10 whole minutes. Dylan's family arrived an hour late because the girls needed their naps, and he spent most of the day watching football while Rebecca documented everything for Instagram. The pattern was so entrenched that I'd stopped fighting it years ago. It was easier to just do everything than to argue and still end up doing everything anyway. My family saw me as reliable, responsible Elena always available, never complaining, perpetually single and therefore perpetually free to serve their needs. But this year, something had shifted. Maybe it was turning 34, or maybe it was Evan telling me I deserved better. But I'd started to see these family gatherings for what they really were, elaborate performances where I played the unpaid help while everyone else played happy family. And this Christmas, I'd promised myself, would be different. This Christmas, I would finally be seen as more than just the family's convenient servant. If only I had known what they were planning. If only I had realized that in their eyes, I wasn't just the help, I was something even less than that. This Christmas was supposed to be different. For the first time in my adult life, I wouldn't be facing the holiday season alone. Evan Parker had entered my life 9 months ago at a tech conference where Brightline Media was showcasing our latest digital marketing platform. He was presenting on cloud infrastructure solutions, and I was immediately drawn to his quiet confidence and genuine warmth. Unlike the aggressive tech bros I usually encountered, Evan actually listened when I spoke, remembered details from our conversations, and never once made me feel like my career was just a placeholder until I found a husband. Our relationship had progressed naturally, without the desperate urgency that had marked my previous attempts at dating in my 30s. Evan worked as a senior engineer at a software company downtown, and we'd fallen into a comfortable rhythm of weekday lunches and weekend adventures exploring Cleveland's hidden gems. He encouraged my ambitions at work, celebrated my promotions, and never made me feel guilty for canceling plans when a client crisis arose. "I want to meet your family," he'd said one evening in early December, as we shared Chinese takeout in my apartment. "You've met my parents, my sister. It's time I got to know the people who raised this incredible woman." My stomach had twisted at his words. How could I explain that my family didn't see me as incredible? That to them, I was just useful. But looking at his earnest face, those warm brown eyes that saw me as someone worthy of respect and love, I'd agreed. This Christmas, I'd decided, would be the year my family finally saw me through Evan's eyes. I threw myself into preparations with the same intensity I brought to launching major campaigns. By mid-December, I'd already purchased and wrapped individualized gifts for all 5 grandchildren, each carefully selected based on their current interests. Tyler got the advanced Lego robotics set he'd been eyeing. Mason received art supplies and a subscription to a monthly craft box. Dylan's daughters each got age-appropriate educational toys that Rebecca had mentioned wanting. For the adults, I'd spent hours finding perfect gifts. A cashmere scarf for Mom in her favorite shade of burgundy, a spa day package for Marissa, who constantly complained about never having time for herself, premium whiskey for Dylan, and a designer handbag for Rebecca that I knew she'd been coveting. But the gifts were just the beginning. I'd ordered a 12-foot Fraser fir to be delivered to Mom's house, along with new ornaments to supplement the family collection. I'd researched and tested recipes for dietary restrictions I knew Rebecca would claim for the girls, even though they ate chicken nuggets and mac and cheese every other day of the year. I'd even hired a professional photographer to capture what I hoped would be the first of many Christmases with Evan by my side. "You're doing too much," Evan had said gently, watching me spreadsheet my Christmas preparations one evening. "Why don't you ask your siblings to help?" I'd laughed, but it came out bitter. "Because they won't, they'll say they will. Then something will come up with the kids, or work, or literally anything else, and I'll end up doing it anyway. It's easier this way." He'd wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder as I typed. "You know you don't have to earn your place in your own family, right?" But that's where Evan was wrong. In the Monroe family, love was transactional, and my currency had always been service. While Marissa paid with grandchildren and Dylan with his masculine presence and professional success, I paid with labor. It was an economy I'd never questioned until Evan started pointing out its inherent unfairness. Still, I had hope. This year would be different because Evan would be there. His presence would elevate me from servant to equal. They'd see me as a woman worthy of love, building a future with someone special. Mom would stop her pitying looks and pointed comments about my biological clock. Marissa would have to acknowledge that I understood relationships, even without children. Dylan might actually talk to me about something other than asking me to babysit. I'd even bought myself a new dress for Christmas dinner, a deep emerald green that Evan said made my eyes sparkle. I imagined walking into Mom's house hand in hand with him, the family seeing us together, finally understanding that I was more than just their convenient single sister. The fantasy sustained me through late nights of gift wrapping and menu planning. This Christmas would be my transformation moment. This Christmas, they would finally see me. The week before Christmas, I drove to Mom's house after work to finalize the menu and discuss timing for Christmas Day. The December darkness had already settled over Shaker Heights by 5:30 p.m. and Christmas lights twinkled from every house except Mom's. I'd be hanging those this weekend. Of course. I used my key to let myself in, calling out my arrival as I stomped snow from my boots. The house was warm and smelled of coffee and Mom's vanilla candles. I could hear voices from the living room. Mom, Marissa, and Dylan must have had the same idea about planning. Perfect, I thought. We could divide responsibilities and maybe, just maybe, this year wouldn't all fall on my shoulders. I was hanging my coat in the hallway when their conversation drifted to me, clear as crystal through the old house's thin walls. So we're all agreed then. Mom's voice carried that tone of finality she used when organizing her charity committees. Elena can handle the children upstairs during dinner. God, yes, Marissa laughed. Tyler and Mason have been absolutely feral lately, and with Dylan's 3 girls, it'll be chaos. But Elena's used to it. Huh, we'll just tell her it's a special kids' party upstairs, Dylan added. Set up some movies, snacks. She won't mind. She never does. My hand froze on the closet door handle. They were planning to exile me upstairs with the children on Christmas. But what about her boyfriend? Marissa asked. Evan something. Oh, please, Mom scoffed. That won't last. It never does with Elena. She's too focused on that job of hers. Besides, even if he does come, he can help her with the kids. Make himself useful. The main thing is, Dylan continued, we adults deserve a peaceful Christmas dinner for once. Good wine, actual conversation, no screaming or spilled juice. Rebecca's been stressed with the girls, and she needs this break. Exactly. Mom agreed. We'll set up the old playroom upstairs. Put a lock on the outside of the door if we have to. You know how the kids are about wanting to come downstairs every 5 minutes. Elena can handle it. She's single. No kids of her own. She has the energy. She actually likes being useful, Marissa added. Remember how she always volunteered to babysit in high school? This is basically the same thing. They laughed. Actually laughed. The sound hit me like a physical blow, making me grip the wall for support. A lock on the door. They were planning to literally lock me in a room with 5 children while they enjoyed Christmas dinner below. When should we tell her? Dylan asked. Oh, we don't need to tell her explicitly. Mom said, on Christmas Day, we'll just guide her upstairs with the kids naturally. Say we need someone to supervise their special dinner. Once she's up there with them, she won't abandon them to come back down. Her sense of responsibility won't let her. We know our Elena. Our Elena, like I was a family pet, a well-trained dog who would stay where commanded. It's perfect. Marissa sighed contentedly. We can actually enjoy our meal, have adult conversations, maybe even play cards after. Remember how nice Easter was when Elena took all the kids to the park for 3 hours? This will be even better, Mom said. They'll be contained upstairs. We'll bring them down for photos, of course. Can't have a family Christmas photo without everyone. But then right back up they go. My legs felt weak. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the hallway floor, my mind struggling to process what I'd heard. They weren't just taking me for granted, they were literally planning to imprison me, to lock me away like an inconvenient servant who needed to be hidden from polite company. Should we at least make sure there's food up there for her? Dylan asked, showing the bare minimum of concern. We'll send up a plate, Mom said dismissively. After we've eaten, of course. Can't have the kids seeing our food and wanting it. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stifle a sob. A plate. Like scraps for the help. After they'd finished their peaceful adult meal with the good wine and actual conversation I apparently didn't deserve to be part of. The best part, Marissa continued, is she'll probably thank us afterward. You know how Elena is, she'll convince herself she had a special bonding time with the kids and be grateful we trusted her with them. The hallway started spinning. I crawled to the bathroom and barely made it to the toilet before I vomited, my body physically rejecting the poison I'd just heard. Years of being overlooked, undervalued, taken for granted, it all paled in comparison to this. They were planning to lock me in a room, to deny me even the basic dignity of choosing where I spent Christmas. I sat on the cold bathroom floor, shaking, as their laughter continued to drift through the walls. They were still discussing details: how to arrange the upstairs room, whether to remove the doorknob or just use a simple latch lock, what movies would keep the kids occupied longest. Each word was another nail in the coffin of my relationship with them. They didn't see me as family. I wasn't even human to them. I was a tool, a convenience, a solution to their problem of wanting a child-free Christmas. I don't know how I made it out of that house. One moment I was on the bathroom floor. The next I was sitting in my car, keys shaking in my hand, watching my breath fog in the freezing air. I drove home on autopilot, muscle memory navigating the familiar streets while my mind reeled. The moment I walked into my apartment, I collapsed on the couch. The Christmas gifts I'd wrapped with such care sat mockingly in the corner, hundreds of dollars and dozens of hours spent on people who saw me as nothing more than unpaid childcare. The menu I'd perfected through 3 test runs lay on my coffee table. The new dress hung on my bedroom door. Tags still attached, waiting for a moment of recognition that would never come. The shock gradually morphed into something else. First came the hurt, a deep, aching wound that felt like something inside me had been carved out. 34 years of trying to earn their love. And this was what I was worth to them. A locked door, a plate of scraps, a convenient solution to their inconvenience. Then came the anger. It started as a small flame, barely a spark, but as I sat there replaying their words, it grew, fed by every memory of being taken for granted, every dismissive comment about my single status, every holiday where I'd worked myself to exhaustion while they relaxed. The anger became an inferno. They knew me so well, did they? They could predict exactly how our Elena would behave, the responsible one who would never abandon the children, who would accept being locked away without complaint, who would probably thank them afterward. My phone rang. Evan. Hey, beautiful. How did the planning go with your mom? I opened my mouth to answer, and what came out was a sob. Once I started crying, I couldn't stop. Years of suppressed frustration and hurt poured out while Evan listened, occasionally making soft sounds of comfort. I'm coming over, he said when I finally managed to explain what I'd overheard. No, I'm okay. Elena, I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, he was holding me on my couch while I ugly cried into his Michigan State sweatshirt. When I finally ran out of tears, he handed me tissues and waited while I collected myself. They were going to lock you in a room, he said slowly, as if testing the words. Your own family was planning to physically lock you away. With the kids, I added, laughing bitterly. Don't forget that part. I'm apparently the designated child wrangler. Elena, that's not just taking you for granted. That's abusive. The word hung in the air between us. Abusive. I'd never thought of it that way, but hearing him say it, something clicked into place. You can't go, he continued. You know that, right? You cannot walk into that house on Christmas. If I don't go, who'll watch the kids? Who'll cook? Evan took my hands, his eyes intense. That's not your problem. Those are their children, their responsibility. Elena, they were planning to lock you in a room. How is that different from imprisonment? He was right. Of course he was right. But 34 years of conditioning didn't disappear easily. They'll be furious if I don't show up. Good. Let them be furious. Let them figure it out themselves for once. I looked around my apartment, at all the preparations I'd made. Something shifted inside me, like tectonic plates realigning. The anger that had been burning now had a purpose, a direction. You're right, I said quietly. But I'm not just going to not show up. Evan studied my face. What are you thinking? They want to lock me away. They think they know exactly how I'll behave. I stood up, energy suddenly coursing through me. Then I'm going to give them a Christmas they'll never forget. One where they learn exactly what it means to lose the person they've taken for granted. Elena, no, I'm serious. They want a peaceful adult Christmas without the burden of their children or their single sister. Fine, they can have it, but they're going to learn what it costs. I walked to my laptop and opened a new document, my marketing brain already strategizing. They think they know our Elena. They have no idea who I really am. The Elena who manages million-dollar campaigns, who negotiates with CEOs, who's built her own life without their help or approval. That's who they're about to meet. Evan moved beside me, reading over my shoulder as I began typing. A campaign strategy for Christmas revenge. The most important campaign of my life, I corrected. One with a very specific objective, showing the Monroe family that their servant is actually their equal, and that she's done being locked away. The hurt was still there, might always be there, but now it had transformed into something powerful, something with teeth. They wanted to lock me in a room. They were about to discover what happened when you tried to cage someone who'd finally found her wings. I approached my revenge like I would a product launch at Brightline Media, with meticulous planning, strategic timing, and flawless execution. My laptop became command central, with spreadsheets tracking every detail, every timeline, every moving piece of what I was calling Operation Christmas Freedom. The first step was psychological. They expected me to handle everything, so I would, but on my terms. I contacted Maison Blanc, Cleveland's most exclusive catering service, the one that handled galas at the art museum and corporate events for Fortune 500 companies. The same caterer Mom had gushed about after attending the hospital fundraiser last spring, lamenting that it was far too expensive for normal people. I need a Christmas dinner for 12 adults and 5 children, I told the event coordinator. Separate menus. The children's menu should be simple chicken tenders, mac and cheese, juice boxes. The adult menu, however, should be your absolute finest: beef Wellington, lobster thermidor, the works. That's quite a specific request, she noted. Usually families dine together on Christmas. This family has very specific needs, I replied smoothly. The delivery address is in Shaker Heights. Everything must arrive at exactly 12:30 p.m. on Christmas Day, not a minute earlier or later. The price was astronomical. I didn't care. I charged it to my rewards credit card, the one I'd been using for all the Christmas purchases. Points I'd been saving for a vacation would now fund my liberation. Next, I went to Mom's house while everyone was at work. I still had my key, and I knew her scheduled Tuesday afternoons were her bridge club. I moved through the house like a ghost, collecting things that were mine, gifts I'd given over the years that had become part of the family collection. The crystal snowflake ornaments I'd brought back from a business trip to Prague. The hand-embroidered tree skirt I'd spent 3 months making. The vintage Santa collection I'd been building since college. They probably wouldn't even notice these items were missing until they went to decorate. I also retrieved something else: family photo albums from the den. I carefully removed every photo where I was the only one working, me in the kitchen while everyone else sat at the table, me cleaning while they opened presents, me holding multiple children while their parents relaxed with wine. I made copies at FedEx, creating a visual timeline of my servitude. The centerpiece of my plan was the letter. I went through 7 drafts before I got it right, each version refined to cut deeper while maintaining the professional composure I'd learned in the corporate world. Dear family, it began. By the time you read this, your Christmas dinner will have arrived, prepared by the finest caterer in Cleveland. The children's meals are upstairs in the room you planned to lock me in. Yes, I heard every word of your planning session. The adult feast is in the dining room, precisely as you wanted a peaceful adult Christmas without the burden of your children or your single sister. I detailed everything I'd overheard, quoting their exact words about locks and convenience and knowing our Elena. I included copies of the photos, annotated with dates and occasions. Thanksgiving 2019, Elena's 6th hour in the kitchen while family watches football. Christmas 2021, Elena cleaning up alone at 11:45 p.m. while others socialize. You were right about one thing, the letter continued. I am responsible. So responsible that I've ensured you have everything you need for a perfect Christmas. The food is paid for. The children have entertainment upstairs. You have the adult celebration you craved. The only thing missing is your servant. But I'm confident you'll manage. After all, you're all adults with functioning limbs and brains. The children are yours, not mine. The mess will be yours to clean, not mine. The memories you make will be yours alone, as you clearly intended. The final paragraph was my masterstroke. I've taken the liberty of sharing this story with some mutual acquaintances who were curious why I wouldn't be attending Christmas this year. The Shaker Heights Methodist Church Prayer Circle, where Mom volunteers, found it particularly interesting, as did the PTA at Marissa's school and several of Dylan's colleagues at the bank who I've met at various functions. They all agree that family dynamics can be so complicated, especially when one member is treated as unpaid help rather than an equal. Evan helped me refine the last detail booking flights to Miami departing Christmas Eve morning, but not just any flight or hotel. I used the money I'd saved for their presents to book first-class tickets and a suite at the Ritz-Carlton Key Biscayne. "Are you sure about this?" Evan asked as I confirmed the reservation. "This is burning bridges with napalm." "They burned the bridge when they planned to lock me in a room," I replied, clicking purchase. "I'm just making sure they see the flames." The final touch came to me at 3 a.m. a week before Christmas. I called the photographer I'd hired for family portraits and changed the booking. Instead, he would arrive at Mom's house at 2 p.m. on Christmas Day with a simple message. "Elena Monroe hired me to capture your first Christmas managing everything yourselves. She thought you might want to remember this special occasion." Every detail was planned, every contingency considered. They thought they knew me. They were about to meet the real Elena Monroe, the strategist, the professional, the woman who'd built her own life while they weren't paying attention, the woman who refused to be locked away. The week before Christmas passed in a surreal blur. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from the family group chat, each one adding another layer to my resolve. "Mom, Elena, don't forget the cranberry sauce recipe from Grandma's cookbook. Marissa, can you pick up extra pull-ups for Mason and maybe some of those organic fruit pouches? Dylan, Rebecca wants to know if you can make that gluten-free stuffing again. The girls loved it last year." I responded to each message with calculated vagueness. "Looking into it. I'll see what I can do. Let me check on that." Never a direct yes, never a commitment. They were so accustomed to my compliance that they didn't notice the change in pattern. 3 days before Christmas, Mom called directly. I let it go to voicemail. "Elena, honey, just confirming you'll be here early on Christmas morning. I'm thinking 8 a.m., so we have plenty of time for food prep. Oh, and can you bring your car? We might need extra space for everyone. 8 in the morning, to cook all day while they relaxed." The casual assumption that my time, my car, my entire Christmas belonged to them, it still stung. But now the pain had crystallized into something harder, sharper. Evan watched me pack on December 23rd, concerned but supportive. "You're really going through with this. They created this situation," I said, folding my new emerald dress, the one they'd never see, into my suitcase. Instead, I packed sundresses, swimsuits, and sandals. "I'm just giving them exactly what they asked for a Christmas without me." That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I turned off read receipts on my phone and muted the family group chat. The digital silence was oddly liberating, like removing shackles I hadn't realized I was wearing. I also made one last preparation. I wrote individual cards for each of the children, my nieces and nephews who bore no responsibility for their parents' behavior, simple messages wishing them happy holidays and letting them know Aunt Elena loved them. I arranged for these to be delivered with the catering, small gifts of art supplies and books tucked inside. The children shouldn't suffer for the adults' choices. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray and snowing. Perfect weather for an escape. Evan picked me up at 6 a.m. My apartment eerily quiet without the usual chaos of last-minute Christmas preparations. The presents I'd originally bought for the adults sat in my closet, returned to their bags. I donated them to a women's shelter the previous day, where they'd go to people who would actually appreciate them. As we drove to the airport, my phone began its symphony. 7:15 a.m. Mom calling. 7:20 a.m. Marissa. 7:35 a.m. Even Dylan was trying to reach me. I watched the screen light up from my purse, feeling nothing but a strange sense of peace. At the airport, I finally checked the messages while waiting at our gate. Mom, Elena, where are you? I have the oven preheating. Shh, Marissa. Are you running late? Tyler's already asking about the gingerbread house you promised to help him make. Dylan, Mom's freaking out. What's your ETA? The gingerbread house. I'd never promised that. Marissa had simply announced I'd be doing it, and I hadn't corrected her, just like everything else assumed. Assigned, expected. I typed one response to the group chat. Something came up. You'll have to manage without me today. Then I turned on airplane mode. How do you feel? Evan asked as we settled into our first-class seats. Free, I said, and meant it. For the first time in my adult life, I'm spending Christmas the way I choose, not the way I'm told. The flight attendant offered us champagne before takeoff. I accepted it, toasting silently to the chaos that would soon unfold in Shaker Heights. By now, Mom would be panicking about the turkey. Marissa would be realizing she had to watch her own children. Dylan might actually have to help with something. As Cleveland disappeared beneath the clouds, I thought about the letter that would arrive with the catering in just a few hours, the family photos showing years of my servitude, the mention of their gossiping church friends and colleagues who now knew the truth, the photographer who would arrive to document their first Christmas without their convenient servant. You know they're going to be furious, Evan said, taking my hand. Let them be, I replied, surprised by my own calm. They were willing to lock me in a room, Evan, to literally imprison me so they could have their perfect Christmas. Whatever fury they feel doesn't compare to what I felt sitting on that hallway floor, listening to them laugh about it. Below us, Lake Erie stretched out, gray and vast. Somewhere down there, my family was about to discover that their perfectly predictable Elena had disappeared, that the servant they'd taken for granted had finally walked away from her post, and I felt nothing but relief. Christmas morning in Miami was everything Cleveland wasn't bright, warm, and filled with possibility. Evan and I had breakfast on our suite's balcony at the Ritz-Carlton, watching the ocean sparkle under a cloudless sky. It was 11:30 a.m., which meant the catering would arrive at Mom's house in exactly 1 hour. You keep checking your watch, Evan observed, pouring fresh orange juice. Old habits, I admitted. Usually by now, I'd be basting the turkey for the third time while Mom criticized my technique. At noon, I turned my phone back on, keeping it on silent. The notifications were apocalyptic: 47 missed calls, over 100 messages. I didn't read them. Not yet. I wanted to savor this moment, knowing the catering was en route, the letter tucked among the delivery instructions. At 12:30 p.m. Exactly. I knew the doorbell at Mom's house was ringing. I could picture it perfectly, Mom, frazzled from attempting to cook, rushing to the door expecting me with armfuls of food. Instead, she'd find uniformed caterers from Maison Blanc, the company whose services she'd always deemed too extravagant for people like us. I imagined her confusion turning to shock as they wheeled in cart after cart of gourmet food, the children's meals being directed upstairs to the room with the lock, the elaborate adult spread being arranged in the dining room with professional precision. And then, the letter. At 12:45 p.m. My phone exploded again. This time, I watched the messages roll in real time. Mom, Elena Marie Monroe, what have you done? Marissa, this is insane. You hired caterers and told them about the room. The caterers know about the room. Dylan, Elena, this is completely inappropriate. You've embarrassed the entire family. Then came the group call attempts. All 3 of them, trying to conference call me. I declined each one. At 1:15 p.m., the messages shifted tone. Mom, the photographer just arrived. You hired a photographer to document this. Have you lost your mind? I laughed, actually laughed, picturing the scene. The photographer, cheerfully explaining he was there to capture their first self-managed Christmas. The family, mortified, surrounded by evidence of their scheme, the elaborate children's setup upstairs, the adult feast below, and no Elena to make it all work. Marissa, the kids are crying. They don't understand why you're not here. That one almost got to me. Almost. Then I remembered that Marissa was perfectly capable of comforting her own children. She'd just never had to on Christmas because I was always there to do it. At 2 p.m., a different kind of message appeared. Rebecca Dillon's wife. Elena, I just read your letter. I had no idea about the lock. I'm so sorry. This is horrible. Interesting. They hadn't told Rebecca about their plan. Of course not even they knew how it would sound to an outsider. At 2:30 p.m., the real explosion came. Mom, Pastor Williams just called. You told the church prayer circle, Mrs. Henderson wants to know if we really planned to lock you away. This is defamation. Defamation. That's rich, coming from people who planned to imprison me. Dillon, my boss called to wish me Merry Christmas and mentioned something about family troubles. You contacted my work colleagues. This is career sabotage. I hadn't contacted anyone directly. I'd simply mentioned, when declining their Christmas party invitations, that I wouldn't be attending family Christmas due to being assigned involuntary childcare duties. The truth has a way of spreading on its own. At 3 p.m., Evan and I were walking on the beach when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Curiosity won. Hello, Elena. This is Rebecca. I'm calling from my phone, not Dillon's. I waited. I convinced them not to use the lock. After reading your letter, I threatened to leave with the girls if they went through with it. The kids are downstairs now, eating at the main table. It's chaos, exactly what they wanted to avoid. But, Elena, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. They never meant for you to know, I said quietly. The food is incredible. By the way, the bill was tucked into the delivery. Dillon nearly fainted when he saw the amount. But Elena, the photos you included, all those years of you working while everyone else relaxed. God, I'm in some of them, holding a wine glass while you're clearly exhausted. I'm so ashamed. I'm not looking for apologies. Rebecca, I know. You're looking for change, and you deserve it. They're all scrambling now, trying to figure out how to clean up, how to manage the kids, how to save face with everyone you told. Mom, your mom is having a meltdown about what the church ladies will think. Marissa's husband had to leave his football game to help with the boys. Dillon is actually washing dishes. It's like watching toddlers trying to run a restaurant. Despite everything, I felt a small smile. And the photographer got some amazing shots before Marissa chased him off. I made sure to tip him extra. There was a pause. Are you coming back? Rebecca asked. To Cleveland. Of course. To family Christmas never again? Not unless things change fundamentally. They might not be capable of that change, Elena. Then that's their choice, just like this was mine. After I hung up, Evan pulled me close. Any regrets? I looked at the ocean, felt the warm sand between my toes, thought about the chaos unfolding in that house in Shaker Heights. My family, forced to face the consequences of their own assumptions. The children, perhaps learning for the first time that Aunt Elena wasn't just a built-in babysitter. The adults, scrambling to manage tasks they'd always deemed beneath their notice. Not a single one. The sunset on Christmas Day was spectacular, painting the Miami sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed impossible. Evan and I sat at a beachfront restaurant, our feet in the sand, sharing stone crab and champagne. My phone sat face down on the table, occasionally buzzing with messages I no longer felt compelled to read. You know what the ironic part is, I said, watching families play in the gentle waves. This probably cost less than what I usually spend on their Christmas. The flights, the hotel, this dinner still cheaper than all those gifts, decorations, and food I bought every year. Evan raised his glass. To economic efficiency through revenge. We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete contentment on Christmas. No stress, no exhaustion, no constant mental calculations of who needed what and when. Just peace. Later that evening, back in our suite, I finally scrolled through the messages. The family group chat was a masterpiece of dysfunction. They'd turned on each other around 4 p.m. when the reality of cleanup hit. Marissa to Dylan: "Your kids destroyed Mom's powder room. You're cleaning it." Dylan to Marissa: "Your boys spilled cranberry sauce on the carpet. That's on you." Mom to both: "Stop fighting and help me. The kitchen is a disaster." There were photos, accidentally shared in their frenzy. Mom's usually pristine dining room in chaos. Marissa trying to corral all 5 children alone while Jake had apparently given up and was watching TV. Dylan in Mom's apron, something I'd never seen in 34 years, looking defeated by a sink full of dishes. The best message came at 9:47 p.m. from Mom herself. Not an apology, I hadn't expected one. Instead, a bitter admission disguised as accusation. "I hope you're satisfied. You've ruined Christmas." The children were unmanageable. "The kitchen is still a mess, and everyone at church will be talking about us for months. You've shown us exactly what you think of your family." I typed back my only response of the day. "No, Mom, I've shown you exactly what you thought of me. The only difference is, now everyone else can see it too." Then I blocked the family group chat. Not forever. Perhaps. But for now. Rebecca sent one last private message. "The kids loved their cards and gifts from you. I told them Aunt Elena had an important adventure but loves them very much. Tyler wants to know if you'll teach him to paint when you get back. Just him and you. No babysitting involved." Think about it. That one. I hearted. As the clock approached midnight, Evan and I walked along the beach one more time. The moon was full, casting silver paths across the water. Other couples and families dotted the shoreline. Everyone peaceful. No one locked in any rooms. What happens when you go back?" Evan asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll realize that taking someone for granted has consequences. Or maybe they'll just find another system that doesn't require me. And if they apologize, if they promise to change." I thought about it, really considered what it would take for me to return to those family gatherings. Words aren't enough anymore. I need to see sustained change, real respect, actual appreciation, and absolutely no locked doors. I laughed, but meant it. They need to understand that I'm not their employee or their servant. I'm their daughter, their sister. If they can't see that, then we'll have a relationship of birthday cards and occasional phone calls. Nothing more. And you're okay with that. I looked at this man who'd stood by me, who'd supported my elaborate revenge without judgment, who saw me as an equal partner worthy of respect and love. I'm more than okay. I'm free. We stood there at the water's edge, my family imploding hundreds of miles away while I stood in paradise with someone who actually valued me. They thought they could lock me in a room, make me disappear into their convenience. Instead, I disappeared entirely, leaving them to face the chaos of their own making. The last message I saw before turning off my phone for the night was from an unknown number. It turned out to be Mrs. Henderson from Mom's church. "Dear Elena, your mother shared the most interesting story at our prayer circle about family obligations. I told her about my own daughter who cut contact after years of similar treatment. Some lessons come hard. Stand your ground, dear. Merry Christmas." I smiled, pocketing my phone. Somewhere in Cleveland, my family was learning what happened when you tried to lock away the person who held everything together. They'd wanted their peaceful adult Christmas without the burden of their children or their single sister. They got exactly what they'd asked for. And I got something better. I got my freedom, my dignity, and a Christmas where I was finally the main character in my own story, not a supporting role in theirs. The waves lapped at my feet as Evan pulled me close. "Merry Christmas, Elena." "The merriest," I agreed, and meant every word. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Have you ever stood up to family members who took you for granted? I'd love to hear your experiences.